All right, welcome back, everybody. I can get this turned around. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
So we're back, and we're gonna take control of the second and third floor. We're gonna do some more touring, and we got some water in us.
Yes, we did.
Lots to talk about.
And
So we're gonna follow Lavi on her tour of more art interpretation. So
this
we're
is
gonna
exciting.
Yeah, we're gonna follow you. We're going up the stairs.
Let's do this.
Okay. So this first painting is called Alpha Omega.
I love this, and
Oh, there we go. We're back.
Hi. Sorry, we
just lost connection for a minute.
connection.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, this one basically reminds me of a life form. It's almost shaped like an alien, but I want to look at it just more in the shape of a generic life form. And I say that because this almost reminds me of a womb. And, there's nurturing, there's birth, and if you notice, it has all of this harnessing energy coming from within it and spewing outside of it. And it's almost like it's connected, it's woven through connecting this massive entity in this life form, and it's informing the huge growth that it's culminated into, because that huge base at the top of the painting reminds me of our capacity to grow, recognize our maximum potential. And for me, that part represents when we actually harness most of the power that is within us. That's our potential right there. And so for me, this is the epitome of life in its fullest form.
It's like chaos versus the peace of
Piece
enlightenment.
of it, yeah.
Because right at the top, what I see is that little bird that's just hanging out right at the surface. Of what could be like maybe the ocean. This could be like a leviathan of chaos.
Chaos? Oh, that could be too.
And he's right at the very tippy top where the tail would be, and he's just completely at peace. And just knowing that, knowing the truth of that, which is really neat. But,
right.
Yeah. That's how I felt too. Like this is like a beast, like leviathan chaos thing.
Yeah. And what's cool about that part too is, the bird's not outside, it's within. It's on.
Yes.
Because when you're outside of chaos, you're trying hard to make sense of it. You're trying your hardest to control it. And I don't know if chaos is meant to be controlled. It's more, in terms of you experience it to the extent that you can, and then learn how to ground yourself, how to regulate yourself within that chaos as that bird is doing, versus trying to control it, which I don't know if we necessarily can.
I think that's a really beautiful sentiment, because I think a lot of the anxiety, especially with young people, they feel like they've got to take on all of the world's problems and be the fixers, and all that does is cause a situation where they're supposed to be in control of things that they can't be in control of.
No, because there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
So that's this one.
Okay, so that one is called Alpha Omega. I'm not sure if when I said that before it was recorded. So I'm going to say it one more time, Alpha Omega.
I love it. And this one has a very similar theme moving forward.
This one's called A Wild Kingdom.
I love this, and I say that because this feels more fluid, more dynamic, more chaotic than that one. That one still has a shape and a form to it. But look at this one. It starts off...
It's just like lines.
Lines. It starts off with lines, and then it culminates into all of these different shades. It takes on a form right at the center, at this epitome of the center, and then if you notice, it then culminates again into a more fluid sort of form with a lot of lines interweaving and interspersing with each other in the form of dots, or just flashes even.
Yeah.
So for me, this is actually a lot of chaos. And if you notice, it's not just this. You notice there are specks of these coming from outside of it too. And what that tells me is, even if you try and define and regulate chaos, you're always going to miss pieces from the outside of it that continue to join it and inform its presence. So it almost goes back to that, part where you're trying to regulate yourself within it by staying close to it, rather than being outside of it and saying, okay, let me gain some control over this. which as human beings we tend to do. And the paradox of it is, the more we try to control something that's not meant to be controlled, the more chaos we experience within ourselves. And then we have to deal with the chaos outside as well as within ourselves. So it's like this double layer that we need to deal with. So I love this.
Great. Right. And again, this is called Wild Kingdom. If any of you are interested in learning more about the paintings that we're talking about, either in part 1 or part 2, you can always email me at kimberrystudio.com or kimberrystudio@gmail.com. Okay. You want to tackle this guy? I love what you said about this one last time. This one was and forgive us if the lighting is a little bit dark. The second floor is a little bit, here we go, this is good. So this is a diptych actually. Peter Boucher did this one here. And this is an oil-based painting, and this one is the one that I did here in the acrylic with my flexible epoxy mix.
I love it. So what this one speaks to me is, I love this, because for me, this is just a humongous integration and flow of energy. So a couple of things. One is, it starts off very simple. If you look at the base of this, it starts off as something simple. So something like a larva almost is flowing upward, right? And because it's raw in its form, it goes partly in this direction, and the other part of it it's almost like it's gathering itself, it's gathering its momentum right here, harnessing that energy almost like cyclically. And then once that's happening, it's almost like it's splurging in 2 different directions. And if you look at this part, it's almost like, this feels like a womb of a person to me. So this larva-like energy harnesses the womb, which is where most of our life forms start to build. And, it informs the growth of that particular life form. And look at the way it harnesses itself in multiple directions. So there's green, there's growth, there's perhaps reflection, there's a bit of integration going on with this piece right here, because you can see all the energy harnessing into one beautiful form right here through the womb of this person, right? And then if you notice, because this energy cannot be contained within this area, it almost divides itself. Look at how it's encompassing and branches out like this, towards the end. And look at the life form it creates. It's beautiful. It's almost like it's majestic. This is the outcome of all of that harnessed energy from this womb. And it almost looks like a vulture for me. It looks like that vulture
That's what I see too.
Right? Yeah. And it basically looks, and a vulture for me symbolizes, a lot of strength, a lot of resilience, and it also, how it flies so high in the sky and it always looks down. Yes. But look at the amount of concentration, the amount of exaction that it needs to be able to trace what's going on below it. So even though it's high up in the sky, it never has its head high. It always looks below. And that's what almost feels like the harness of energy is coming from, because it's from the ground up. So the vulture embodies almost all of this energy, continues to kind of experience the environment at its level, but it always looks down.
Interesting. Well, I remember the last time we talked about it, I was saying, sometimes it was almost like I felt like it was like some sort of snake head coming out this way, and the vulture here, which can always be sort of like one of those ominous kind of symbols in chaos. But I remember you saying, look at how she's able to turn things that could seemingly be destructive or seem this, she's holding it and transforming it. Right. Because in this, what I see here is like a baby. Like she's holding, do you see that? Like the
right
little baby
here?
head. This is like the baby head. Like this is the hair here. This little face looking this way because they're both looking this way. You see the head?
Right here,
Yeah. Because I remember that you had said something last time about...
Oh, I remember. The other way of looking at it is this woman who's personifying resilience, but also the force, the strength.
Yeah, because it goes into this being like, you were saying, like she's creating this, which is really interesting.
Right, and the way it's kind of linked is, well, I think I was actually going to go to this one, but since you mentioned this one, yeah. I think that's a great idea though, because I think you're right. Another way of looking at it is like harnessing all of that energy right here to nurture the life form. Like the woman represents empowerment and resilience, and the ability to kind of, you not only just regulate that energy, but to hold it in all its chaos. That takes a lot. So to be able to harness that, hold that, regulate it, and eventually come out in a more defined form of a life form, I think speaks to what we can do with chaos as its own energy force. And it's almost like, if we move on to this one, it's like there are multiple spheres of our lives that can coexist. Because for me, this represents a more orderly, structured form of life. It's more tranquil with like the leaves right here and the tree, and you can see like this almost has like a moonlit kind of atmosphere right here. And you can see the energy is more streamlined, it feels more orderly, it feels more clean. Versus if you just look at the other part of this, the same painting, right? This one feels a bit more fluid, it feels a bit more transient in that, you can see one circle right here, but look at all of these concentric circles. They're in no particular color, no particular order, but that's what happens when we go through everyday life. There are different transitions, there are different changes. They don't have a particular way of occurring, they just occur. And the key is you get to wake up one day and experience this part of life, and you could wake up the next day and totally experience this part of life, or you could have both within the same day too. True. And I think that's the beauty of the unpredictability, which kind of speaks to this painting in a way that it starts off tranquil, which is this part, and then right in the middle you can see like a bit of the harnessing of the energy going on with all of these change and transitions occurring right here. And they both coexist. It's happening within one entity, within one woman. So they both happen simultaneously, and then to harness it and to hold both sides of chaos as well as tranquility. And when we hold it and when we harness it in the way we would like to, without judgment, you spoke about non-judgment.
Just it is what it is.
It is what it is, and I get what I can, and I'm going to work with it at my pace.
Exactly.
When you give yourself permission to engage in both parts, look at the outcome.
Yes.
So that's what I love about this, in that, that there's a possibility of multiple aspects of our lives coexisting, and we can't choose.
Yes.
It just is.
So this one here is called The Fragility of a Prideful Mind. Now I'm going to plug in because we did have a small break in charging my phone, but not quite long enough. I'm going to let you hold this. If you want to go ahead and just start off with whatever you want to talk about, I'm just going to plug this sucker in.
Sure. So what you're seeing here right now, now this one reminds me of a jellyfish. Because if you look at the top, that outer layer almost looks like a jellyfish. And then if you scroll down, this part gets nurtured or nourished, right, by the ocean. And if you go even further down, look at where it's getting its energy from. For me, this represents the ocean. This represents the life that keeps it going. Look at how it propels the base of this beautiful jellyfish. It's almost like it's giving it permission to breathe and live. So it draws energy from this beautiful life source. And look at how well it harnesses it across. And for me, that's the beauty of being connected with the universe that you draw from, that you are able to contribute to it, you're able to mold it in the way you can, and you get to draw your energy from it when you are in touch with it more, when you're in the present with it more. What I also see, which is a really another cool way of interpreting this, is you can see that this feels like the shape or the face of a woman.
Oh yeah.
Right? And you can see that she's, in a lot of cultures, a lot of women wear wear an artifact or wear something on top of their heads.
Yes.
You know, and for me, this woman symbolizes a lot of power. She symbolizes a lot of resilience, almost to say that I've discovered my identity. I'm me. I'm fierce. I'm here. I'm not threatened, and I'm wearing it. So for me, this feels like the work that she's done for herself, and this is the outcome of her work. And the beauty of it is she started off small. She started off from this force right here.
It's almost like an egg.
Egg, right?
Like
yeah. It has a lot of protein, a lot of mental energy in it. So she's harnessing it, and notice how she's not developed yet right here. Notice how this feels like more of the initial stages of development for her mentally. And then if you notice, she continues through this path to work on her progress, and look at the outcome of it. That's amazing.
Sweet. Okay, so that one's called The Fragility of a Prideful Mind. Let's go in here because I think the lighting is really good in here. There we go. There's some good lighting. It was getting kind of dark in the hallway.
Yeah, this is much brighter. And if you can see, the light also reflects all the different colors a little bit more. And this one feels, actually, I know I gave a different interpretation the last time, but this one's speaking to me differently right now.
That's good. Go with it.
And this is so cool because this feels like these are two forces almost in a dialogue with each other, not necessarily like at war or at conflict with each other, but it's almost like they're talking to each other, trying to see how best they can work together or integrate themselves. Now that could be done through initial tension, and not all conflict is bad.
Sure.
So having a dialogue about if it can lead to further integration would be awesome, which is what this painting is about for me. It's about two forces in dialogue with each other, wanting to work with each other, wanting to know how to integrate with one another. And I say that because if you look at this part of the painting, right, it's almost like a dragon. You know, and then you can see the tail right there, and it's drawing all its energy. You can see like the red part of it right at the center, and if you look at like the blue part, it's almost like the head, and the eye of the dragon is the golden dot right there.
Oh, I see that. Okay.
So that's what it represents for me. And if you look at this side of the painting, which is to my right, you'll notice that, you know, the golden is kind of weaving into right from here. You can see the other force that I was referring to, with the red being the dot, the eye of the other force. And the beautiful thing about this, why I'm seeing they're in dialogue with each other, is if you notice, there are parts of this golden hue that are also present in the dragon's tail. Right here. It's the same color. So, and if you notice, the red dot also is very similar to the red part of that heart of the dragon, right there. So it's almost like saying, you know, we are two energies, we're two forces, we stand for two different things, and where's the common ground? And yes, it's going to look a little bit messy right here, because that's what working with our differences look like. So this could be forces within ourselves, or this could be forces between two people that are intersecting to dialogue with one another. And that's what makes this so beautiful, is to say that there are two totally different sets of forces that can actually engage with one another because you have the space for it.
That's interesting. And you know, adding to what you're seeing, originally how I saw this was a bird, and a bird versus a worm. And you know, worms are the lowest of the low on Earth, and the birds are the highest of the high. Talk about taking two completely polar entities and dynamics, but the bird feeds the worm, feeds from the worm. So you have to go, and so you have that kind of conflict, and also transmutation, because one feeds the other.
Right. So it's like a cycle of life.
It is a cycle of life, and then what happens with the bird when it dies? The worms eat the bird.
Eat the birds, right? Yeah.
So you know, you've got two amazingly opposing conversations. One seeing a perspective way up, and one seeing a perspective from way down. And the merging, and again, and it doesn't have to be a fight. Yeah. Because it actually, if one didn't exist, neither would the other.
Neither would the other. So yeah.
All right. So this one's called Worms End. Hey, Tony. All right. So do you want to talk about maybe the sculptures before we go to this, or do you want to go to that painting on the other side? We've got this little guy.
Well, this one feels a bit different for sure. I think this one reminds me of, I have a tendency to touch everything I see.
No, that's fine.
This one feels very different from what I've been talking about so far. This one feels more concrete, more stable. If you notice, it has two sides to it, right? This side feels like it's a bit longer, and it's attached with a tiny screw in the middle. And if you notice this one's more like fluid. It feels a bit more curvy, and then it's hanging by itself, but then it's also attached on top. So what this tells me is, again, like for me, this is about, you have this base which holds everything, right? And then you have some parts that are stable, and you can see that it's straight, and some things are going to be straightforward, like this side right here. It's going to feel anchored with the screw that it's holding on to. And then others, you might think that it's not making sense because it might not fit in with your stable part of life, but look, it's still attached. It's still stable in its own way.
I think that represents me. Because I call this guy split mind. I see it as one face. Do you see him? Like, this is the shoulders down here, going up to the neck, and then there's a head with the ears on either side, and he's split right down the center between the expressive and the practical.
Oh.
Or it could just also mean dual-mindedness. You know how sometimes we're taught dual thinking?
Yeah.
Fight for peace.
Yeah.
That gives me a headache. These kinds of things. And I really like how you noticed this side being more of that anchor, which I tend to struggle with the anchor part.
That's a tough one. But also, oftentimes we think that, we are all going to have areas where we feel this stable, like one on the right side. Like you said, the practical side. And we're always going to have spheres of our lives or experiences that feel a bit more curvy, and we might not see the stability right off the bat, but it will anchor you eventually. And I think what's important to keep in mind is you're going to have this exact same person, right? Or even if you want to move towards this and say somebody else might be in this state compared to that state, right? So right now for them, maybe they're looking for stability and they're just starting to converge for that stability at this point. And I think what's really cool is, imagine if you are putting your practical, stable self forward, which is the right side of that, and you're talking to someone who's at a different level of readiness with that stability. They are just starting. And imagine if you constantly miss each other, we simply brush it off as, we're just two different people, we're not able to get each other. No, you're just at different stages. You're just at different spheres in your life.
And sometimes it's a good way of balancing.
Right. So you both can learn so much from each other. It's just that you're going to take time to recognize what is that point of convergence.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of this one. I couldn't come up with a name for that one. I think it's point of convergence.
Yes. I knew we were in sync with each other.
All right. Okay, so here, this one's called Swan Song.
Oh, this is beautiful. So there are a couple of things that come up for me. So I know this spoke to me differently the last time. This is speaking to me again in a very different sense. And I actually see a very similar sense of this person, right? I see the head with the hair over there, right? So I see the face.
Show me the person, because you know me. I see that other thing. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to throw off what you're doing. But show me where you see the person, the hair.
So you notice this part. That's, for me. Look at this. This is an outline of a face. Here's the chin and the face, and there's that hair.
Okay.
And it almost feels like, I don't know, that person has a pigtail or something that's flying.
Yeah.
For me though, so that's the person's face, and if you go down, you'll notice the same theme of, this growth, this energy that constantly revolves within the core of every individual, drawing from beliefs, drawing from, values, how that informs so much of what we say and do. So much of what I'm saying and doing right now, and then kind of just, if you go further as to how it was developed, look at a bit of a chaos right here, right? So for me, This speaks to all the early family experiences we've had.
Yeah.
You know, and look at how beautiful. I love what you did here because they're different colors. Because for me, this could mean family. This could mean the extended community that you were part of.
Sure. Or history,
language. Language, exactly. Your cultural group's history. And look at this. If you're a religious person, then whatever religious community that you're involved in, your neighborhood, your school, look at the energy that this harnesses. Even though this feels chaotic at this stage because you're still in the nascent stage of development, look at all of this beautiful energies that kind of inform, and I know I recognize that this can't be beautiful for everybody, and knowing that these energies exist, and depending on how you harness it, depending on how you interact with the environment,
the power.
There's the power. Yeah, and the environment interacting with you, you can actually nurture it into a more streamlined way. And I actually love this part. You see how this is
I love that part too.
I love it because it shows that it's not going to be smooth.
Yes.
You know, you're going to have a break in channeling that energy. You're going to feel, at times, it's okay to feel anxious and depressed and hopeless. That is okay. It's part of life. And what's cool about it is through your work together with those emotions, with those states, what happens is eventually, and again, you know, I recognize it's such a magnanimous struggle, but look at when you harness it in any way that you feel comfortable, it does take a more concrete, more contained shape right here. From all of this chaos, right? All of these different amalgamation of experiences and challenges comes this end. And for me, the reason I picked up on the hair, and for me, this part also represents part of the hair, is because it's part of this person's ability to draw so much energy from this chaos. Because to channel all of this, all of these experiences, all of this energy, all of these challenges, and to kind of contain it within your mind. For me, the hair represents a huge part of this person's mind right here. Because all of this eventually culminates into all of these aspects that this person ends up holding. Notice how they're different shapes, they're different colors, they have different outlines. But that's what these different experiences can eventually be, that they are different parts of who you are. They bring about different aspects of your identities.
Ooh, are you ready for me to go somewhere with this
Go
one?
with it.
We're going there. All right. So it's interesting how you keep seeing the hair and you keep now see, I see something totally different. I'm not going to say no. We're not going to go there. We're going to keep going with what you're saying.
Okay.
So what I think is so fascinating about what you see and the very top of the painting is the hair.
Right.
Now, you know, in Native American cultures, in even, you know, think of Samson and Delilah, the power was in the hair.
Yes.
Everything that comes up from values, energy, decisions, choices, what you put in your body, what you think, so many civilizations, cultures talk about your hair is what, you know, even the Indians, what was it, the trackers, they could feel other people or things through their hair.
Yes.
And the whole, you know, talk of how Samson lost his power because he cut his hair. You know, it's fascinating from that interpretation. So there's the highest point of the painting is that highest level of power transmuting everything that you take in.
Right.
The choices that you make can make you strong, can make you weak, it can, all these different things, and then the power becomes in the hair. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Take a pause on that one.
I know, that just spoke to me. I didn't realize the depth to which it spoke to me till I actually said it out aloud.
Whew.
Yeah.
All right.
I still don't know what you saw.
I see a swan. I mean, I see something so different, but that's what's so beautiful. That's the whole point of these paintings, is that each person comes to the table with being able to see different things, and that's what's so, and different perspectives, and knowing that all of them are they're so insightful in so many different ways. Because, as you know, I come from it, and I see a swan in the center right in here, okay, but it's the same kind of concept of what you're saying from what you see.
Yeah.
In the sense of, swans historically talk about grace, and they're vulnerable, but they're also very quiet, but they can also attack, and there's all kinds of different things going on with that. And there's a lot of mythology dealing with the swan, which is really reflective of what we're talking about with Samson and all these other things. So it is interesting. The more we keep doing this, the more I keep realizing that though we can surfacely see different objects, different things, when it comes to seemingly the essence of things,
we seem to
connect on that, which is really neat. And that's why I love us getting together and doing this, because it creates such an interesting conversation. And like I said before, these conversations are things that are really topical right now with what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's now, we are going to, do you want to do a couple more paintings, or we better call it a day?
We should call it a day.
Okay, so we're going to call it a day, and hold on, let me unplug this. I got to give you a big hug.
Oh, of
this
course.
This has been so great. Thank you so
much.
Thank you
for doing
so
this.
much.
I love you too. Oh my gosh, this was awesome.
Yeah, and so I hope there we go. Hey guys. So I hope that you all get something out of this as well, and
we definitely did.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so wonderful to be able to have really great conversations with people that you really respect, and really, you just add to the conversation, just like really add to the table of stuff. So anyway, I hope you guys have a really great Sunday. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and hopefully she can come again, and we will do part 3.
Yes.
Soon.
Which is going to be exciting, as always.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.